Welcome everybody to August, Thursday the 26th of August. Well, I was really excited to see you all. It's going to be a really exciting conference this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you are. We're just giving people a chance to join us. I can still see there's people coming in, which is wonderful. It's great to see you all from all over. Some familiar faces and lots of new ones, which is also exciting. I'll give you a few minutes to join. What I can be doing actually, what I will probably do, I think I'm going to start off by playing our welcome video. That's what the plan was, wasn't it? I'm going to play the, oh no, that one, this one. Let's play a video for you to welcome you all. Brilliant. I'm actually going to do that again. I enjoyed it so much. I'm going to play it once more because I can still see people are still joining us. So while you're still joining, I'm going to play this once more. Wonderful. So I hope you all enjoyed our new the new video we've got for you. So I'm going to start the presentation now, if that's okay. Wonderful, and welcome everybody from all around the world to another exciting monthly conference from the Global School Alliance. It's great to see you all and thank you for joining us. I hope you find it as exciting as I'm about it. We've got 4 amazing speakers. And we've also got lots of new things to share with you, which is all very exciting. The theme today is actually remotivating learning, ideas to inspire students. Obviously, with us all planning to go back to school very soon, summer's over, guys, sorry. We now start thinking about how we're going to re-engage with our students again, which is also exciting. It's nice to be back in school really and meet everybody and see all the students again, catch up. So the agenda for today is obviously introducing the Global School Alliance, because we've got lots of new people joining us today, as well as some fantastic members who've been with us since the beginning, and thank you for your loyalty. Oh, thank you for enjoying the participating, really. The goals for the Global School Alliance are all about the membership and events you can take part of and opportunities, and then we'll have our wonderful guest speakers based on the theme, and we'll have our question and answers as usual at the end. But don't forget, use the chat. All say hi to each other in the chat, introduce yourself, where you're from, a bit about yourself, and put your questions in there for us, and we'll try to get round to your questions that way. So there might be 1 or 2 questions after the speakers, but we'll try and save most of the questions and answers towards the end, if that's okay. So, Global School Alliance, who are we? What are we? Basically, the aim of the Global School Alliance is to provide a platform to connect and collaborate with educationists around the world. Some amazing schools and teachers can come together. It's a way of connecting you. We want to facilitate and enable this connection and collaboration. That was the reason it was set up in the very first place. And you can join as a school, as a teacher, and you can be more active and be an ambassador pro if you like. So the goals were and still are basically to look at quality education, look at global education and what global education and global schools mean. And our aims as teachers and educators, of course, is to improve the outcomes for the students. So by collaborating and sharing our exciting ideas and methods and processes and resources and everything, we can basically enable the students to have a better future and to develop. We're trying to obviously develop global citizens because we are so connected, which is another thing I think the pandemic has taught us, what a small world we are and how connected we are. So that was the whole goal of having a place where we can all collaborate and meet. So the online platform, which I've got a bit more to tell you about in a minute, is the best place to do that. So as part of the Global School Alliance, there's an online platform as well as our website and the Facebook page, and a way to communicate. So on here is the best place to do some joint projects, to start looking at immersive experience and programs where we're going to be sharing resources and ideas. So there's lots of things going on. And as members, we want you to help contribute to this. So obviously we want you to build up the resources, the ideas, and the sharing so that it benefits everybody. So if there's anything you think that's missing or we can add in for you, let us know. We're happy to build it out to make sure that all it suits, it's fit for purpose, if you see what I mean. So like I say, you can join as a school membership and you can join as an ambassador, which is basically the teacher membership, and ambassador pros are a bit more active. And the ambassador pros are helping us, promoting the Global School Alliance and actually contributing a bit more. So you can join in all, or it could be all of those. It's not one or the other. You can be all those memberships, but basically just join in, register, and that means you'll get all the updates and you'll find out about all the upcoming events as long as we've got your email and we can contact you and share it with you. And then obviously when you become a member, you do need to register into the platform with your own password to access the actual online platform as part of the website. So don't forget to do that if any members out there haven't done it yet, because that's where all the exciting stuff's happening at the moment. So we like to remind you about what's coming up. August has been a fairly quiet month because we've all had a bit of a break, obviously because of the holidays, and we need to chill out a bit. But September is really exciting. Things are beginning to ramp up again with the new academic year. So we have our Global School Fair on the 16th of September. That is, I call it a speed date. So that's basically when we've got some great ed tech companies who are going to share some ideas with you and discounts, and you can do a speed date and just have a bit of presentation from a few on that one. That's a great one to participate in. The What's Exciting Education on the 23rd of September. That again is where teachers and educators share what floats their boat at the moment, what's exciting and what's new, shares with the other members on that, so don't miss that. And our next conference, like this one, will be on the 30th of September. And in that one is when we're actually going to do the official launch of our online platform. Yes, I know it's been running and we've all been on it, but we're doing an official launch because there's lots of new functionality coming in, which we're going to share with you as part of the official launch. And we also want you to participate in the official launch by contributing some stuff, which I'm going to explain in a second. So we also we're going to continue our polls that we do now with the conferences. This was started a couple of conferences ago because we're going to make you participate. And if you can, leave your cameras on because I do like seeing people. But if not, definitely participate and give us your feedback. And I've got my able assistant, James, is going to launch the survey for us. Is that okay, James?
I'm just doing it now for you, Tony.
Thank you. So what's the first question? What's the first question for them?
If you hit your
I need to say that, don't I? Yes. How do you feel about welcoming students back? There we go.
So I'm just going to put that question out.
So that's the question, and those are the options. So we want you to select one of those options. I think you can only do one. Is that right, James? You can only choose one option.
That's right.
But so we'll share the results in a moment. So when it's live in a second, you can all contribute to this poll. So give us your feedback.
Yeah, and the poll is live now. Okay.
Can everybody see that? I'm not sure if I can. I hope everyone else can. Yeah, you can see it. Fabulous. Just me that doesn't then, because I'm sharing my screen. So we're getting results coming in. People are actually responding there, James?
Actually, I haven't had any results yet, so I'm going to just restart it. Just give me a second. Sorry about that.
The airport proper. I know many Afghans have gone through there. It's very hard to get.
Can we all try and make sure we stay muted as well, guys, for the sake of everybody else? Thank you.
I've just
So how are we doing with
relaunched
the
the
poll?
poll. I don't know if anyone can see that. I'm not getting any votes in it just yet.
Right. Anybody? Does
I
anyone?
can see it and have been
I
able
saw,
to
I saw
vote.
it the first time and answered, and then it came up again, and then I answered again. So I've
So it is
definitely
there.
done it.
Thank you so
It
much.
was.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Thank you very
That's
much.
no problem. I don't know if you've received the response though, but we've definitely done it.
Right.
So,
Okay. I'm
James,
now
do we
going
have
to
some
share
more?
the results.
Can we
Oh,
share
there
results?
you go.
Fabulous. But I can't see them, James. You're going to have to tell us what the results are because I'm sharing my screen.
Interesting. I'm host, but I can't see them either. So if someone can see them, maybe they could share them.
It says 80% of people are looking forward to it, 8% are okay, 10% are apprehensive, and 2% are not looking forward to it.
Abena, thank you.
Maybe those 2% are in the wrong job, maybe. But thank you. I think really everyone's got a mixture of those, haven't they? We're a bit apprehensive about it, but really we're looking forward to it, which is fantastic. Thank you, Abena, for reading that back to us. We do need to work on our technology so that I can actually tell you the results. But thank you so much for those of you who did participate and share your feedback with us. So the exciting news I want to share is the official launch of the GSA platform. A lot of you have already been participating, and if you haven't, make sure you do. So join and have a look at the platform. So as part of the official launch, there's new functionality coming on, and this is the exciting aspect that I want you all to participate in. We're going to start doing a culture postcard project. So we'd like schools to basically celebrate the culture of your school and your local area on a postcard, and so this is the actual group on the platform that you're going to upload it to. It's going to look like this. So we're going to ask you to include your school logo, the school name, and obviously the country you're from, with a montage of images that you're proud of your school and your area, because we want to share culture. And the plan for these culture postcards is they're going to be on the site, but we're going to have a culture of the month, and that we'll feature on the website, we'll feature in the newsletters, we'll feature at the conferences, and the person or the school who put that culture postcard forward can introduce themselves and tell us about it. So we want to basically celebrate everyone's culture. So the more postcards that we can get, the better. So have a look for this. This is going to be launched. It's actually live now, I believe. So, but we'll make sure everyone gets the link to join this. It's on the platform in the group. If I go back a slide, this is what, so basically you're uploading it. You go to the Culture Postcard Project group, you download the template, you make your pretty postcard, and then you upload it back to the project, the group project here, and we will be sharing them with the launch. We're going to start off again at the next conference to share these. So I think that's a really exciting thing, and please participate. We're really looking forward to finding out more about each other's culture and sharing that. Okay, so that's one exciting thing to share about the culture postcard. That's all to say. The other thing I want to announce and celebrate is the fact that we've got our first 40 schools to participate in my pilot online project. We're going to call this is the introduction project. So it's a basic project that schools can do to introduce each other. I've got a very simple template, and I want to use it for schools to get to know each other. So this is the first of the many projects you can get involved in. And we're offering our support package for free for this one because it's the pilot one. So the VIP package basically is that we found schools, we've asked people to participate. We had so many. I'm really sorry for the people who didn't get a place, because we had over 100 schools wanting to participate in this first project, and I could only work with 40. So the 40 that have been selected have been matched up with at least as close to the area they wanted for their preferred region. So they will have a private group on the platform. We will we'll explain to you how to access that, and obviously the template. And the aim is to use the template to engage a class of students, to tell them about themselves, to learn about the other class. You'll upload the results into your group, and then there'll be a live video interaction, a Zoom interaction at the end of the project, where the two classes can actually engage and share their reviews, get students talking and seeing each other and sharing what they've been talking about. So it's going to be really exciting. And we're there to help you all the way. So we're there to help you set up the groups, to obviously participate in the teacher organizing of it, and part of the live session. So basically the VIP package that you pay for is our time to help you do that. but we are going to do this again. So if you were unsuccessful to be one of the 40 this time, I'm going to do this again in January. I probably run it 3 times a year for the free access to our package. But it's not the only way you can do virtual partnerships. There are groups on what's going live when we launch as well. Is the forum on the platform that you can search for and find a partner to do it yourself without our help. It's automated. So you can say, I'd like to partner with a school in Morocco. Put it out there on the forum, and schools in Morocco can see you're asking, and that you can connect online yourselves, and the group can be set up, and you can start communicating that way. So you can do it for yourselves without paying for our time, if you see what I mean. But we're happy to provide the VIP package at a cost as well. So it's really exciting that we can now start using the platform to connect with each other, and please do. So I'll keep you updated on how the projects go, because another part of being at the pilot is that we're going to show you how well it goes. So look out for more information on that. It's really exciting. And another aspect, another thing to get you all involved in, so there's the postcard, look for projects, is that especially with going back to school, we'd like you to share with us your either video or your photographs of everybody coming back to school, everybody back in the classroom. So share, we're creating this as like an official launch area as well. So we would like you to share as much as possible. We will again share with you where to put these. It'll be on the platform again, but we'd like to see and have a nice montage that we can show at our conferences and on the conference of all you wonderful people out there and your wonderful students. Obviously, you need to be careful safeguarding who you show and what you show, but we would love to see more about yourselves and your schools, giving us a wave, saying hi, welcome back to school. We're in Africa and we're back in school. We're in America and we're back in school, but it would be lovely to share that. So it's another thing we'd like you members to participate with as part of our lovely launch. Okay, so I think that's probably about enough from me talking to you. And again, the next conference, the theme is actually the student voice. We're going to be looking at our student council and giving students voice, but half of it will also be assigned to sharing all the lovely things you're sharing with us about the launch and the more functionality on the platform for the official launch. It's going to be really exciting. So I can stop talking now, and I would love to hand over to Annie Jane Finch-Johnson, who is going to talk to us all the way from Peru. Thank you, Annie. Are you okay if I stop sharing? Are you okay to take over and introduce yourself?
Yeah, fine. Thank you. Share it here. Okay. Hi, everyone. So currently, right now, I'm based in the UK. So good afternoon to everyone here. I'm working in Peruvian hours because we are still online. I actually head back on Monday, fly back, which is quite exciting to get back in, because for the first time in what will be since March 2020, I will be stepping foot back in school with some students, which is going to be amazing. Everyone's incredibly excited. So yeah, heading back on Monday. I'm a head of year and teacher of PE out there. I've been teaching for 10 years now and been a head of year for 7 of those in a variety of different schools in England and now internationally. As we have all suffered the COVID hit over the past 18 months, the travel plans that I had for my summer holidays were disrupted last year. So I took the opportunity to start writing about pastoral care, something that I'm really passionate about since I completed my master's. And yeah, I thought, why not take the opportunity to get back into the writing, which I'd really missed. So you can see that there. My school that I'm at the minute is Markham College in Lima, Peru. So feel free to check that out. I'm a journal reviewer for the National Association of Pastoral Care, and they've got some really good journals and evidence-based research in pastoral care. So do take a look and see what you think about them. And you can find me on Twitter at Talk Pastoral and LinkedIn with my full name. I know it's very long, but I don't think you'll find anyone else on there with that. So hopefully I shouldn't be too hard to find me if you want to connect. So to start off with, either with a pen and paper if you have anything available, or you can use your phone. But in the chat, if you feel comfortable to, please write one word or colour that is a reflection of how you feel today. So I think for me, I'd probably go quite joyful, and my colour will probably be quite yellow today, I think. I feel quite yellow in that sense. So please do feel free, if you feel comfortable to write in the chat on how you're feeling, any colours or words that are there. So we've got a mix coming in, some yellows, some greens, It'd be quite nice to feel quite green today, I think. We've had a cozy. Yeah, more yellows, more greens. Oh, green is common today on this Thursday. That's good to know. So when I was asked to do this, I kind of looked at the things that were want to be included in it. And in my eyes, the question about how we can inspire students post-COVID was kind of an umbrella term for me. And the other aspects kind of fit underneath it. So I'm going to just kind of use that heading as an umbrella and then talk about the little bit separately in the way that I see them and in the format. So the first one is practical ideas to remotivate learners in the classroom or via hybrid learning. I've actually put in brackets some words that I use. I kind of find sometimes things like remotivate or re-engage, although they're useful and they're used a lot in the education context, sometimes I think there's a connotation that we automatically come up with strategies to do these things before we've even found out the reason why these things happen. And it's quite a big thing for me with when people say, re-engage, disengage. It's one of the terms that I really do not like, because I just find, we've got to find out why. We can't engage or motivate students without understanding their reasons for why that's happening at that point. So I've gone and put new words in to add to it that I think will help and support that. So things like excite, spark interest in, or build relationships with. I think these are the things that help with motivation and underpin the word motivation. So I've just put a few ideas that we have done before. So obviously team building, that's quite a good common one. And we have to think quite wisely about that now with COVID and the space that we've got and what equipment we can use, but we can do lots of different things. House tutoring year competitions, they have been really successful over Zoom. And as we go into hybrid, I'm hoping that they will continue. Project-based learning, it's something that we've done as a school over the past couple of years. And I think as we head back into school, it might be a good way to reintroduce those students into the situation, rather than going straight back into formal classroom learning. Try and do something a bit different where they might have to work in pairs or separately over a hybrid learning and in person could make that much easier because the project can continue. Discussions on communication. So like I said, our kids have not been in since March 2020. So it's really important when we go back in that we remind them of the communication. Who can you go to? Is it your form tutor? Is it your head of year? Is it your teacher? Do you have a counsellor, an SEN department? So just the lines of communication. Discussions on emotions. I think that's something, it's quite easy, isn't it, to go back into school and all of a sudden go, oh, well, we're back in now, it's all going to be fine. And the students will just slot back in, but we need to encourage them to talk about their emotions. Some students will have lost people over this time. Some home situations will have changed. They may have had to move countries or move areas in a country. So discussing how they're feeling about that is really important. PE and sport, obviously that is my background, but it is a huge benefit for people and gets people working together and just being a little less structured. Tours of the school. So again, just reintroducing your students back in to the school, going back round, notifying classrooms, especially the younger ones, and I imagine in primary school especially. Opportunities to see other students and be in the company of others. Some of them have not done that. They haven't done that for 18 months. They haven't been in a room with 15 other children. So it's going to be quite overwhelming. A back to basic reset. So just start from the beginning, don't overcomplicate it, allow them to be comfortable, but also ask them, what is it that you want to do? What's going to make your learning fun today? What can we plan for over the next couple of weeks? I think often, although we are incredibly trained as teachers and as counsellors and as teaching assistants, etc., we often think we are always the expert in understanding how that child is, but at the end of the day, they're the expert in themselves, and we have to understand how they might be feeling and what might motivate them. So I thought I would just share a few things here of things that we've done as a school. All these we have done on Zoom, and some are starting to now become hybrid as we hopefully venture back in for the first and final time. So you can see here like online sleepovers, activities, house competitions. So I've got a quick 2-minute video just so you can have a little idea of what we've done. I hopefully have shared sound. So let's just see. Let me know if not.
No sound.
Sorry,
on that.
Annie, no sound. Can't seem to hear anything.
No problem. It's literally a song. It's no biggie, but I'll put it on now. There we go. Hopefully So that was just a quick video. That was the virtual kayak. So each year group is very lucky that they get to go on a trip every year. Sometimes Waraz, Luna Loire, etc. And that was the P6s, the year 7s that missed out on their trip, and they did a virtual kayaking. And as you can see in that lovely Annalia's family there, they decided to throw water on her at the time that she was about to be soaked on the virtual trip. So with lots of things, we had our virtual graduation, we've done house art, surf yoga, the Greenstock virtual, Earth Day. There's lots and lots of things for you to do there, and feel free to take any of the ideas or ask any questions at the end. Are there any external factors that we have that can have a positive and negative bearing on student engagement? So of course there are hundreds and thousands of ones that we could talk about, and these are just some of the ones that I've noticed. So definitely think at the moment, so exam decision, our year 13s are going in for their examinations next week, and we still, we're planning to go ahead with the IB mock examination, the IB formal examinations, but with COVID, you just don't know what's around the corner. So those unknown decisions, and they struggle to plan for that. Family situations through COVID could be positive or negative. Loss of somebody either close to them or in work or anything like that. Mix of education formats could be positive and negative. Not attended secondary school yet. Our year 7s haven't stepped foot in high school. And our year 8 stepped foot in for 5 days. So heading back in, they've not actually been on the campus really. So all those anxieties about that. Country politics. So in Peru, it's just had a big change in the government, and I'm sure in many other countries that's happening and having quite a big effect on how the students are feeling. Teachers, we have a huge part to play in that, how we react to certain situations. Not having been in groups before, but also peer relationships. We all know that the teenage brain is run by the emotional aspect as they're going up from 11 to 24, as it is for your prefrontal cortex. So it is incredibly important that we recognize that these peer relationships are so important, and that will often make their decisions for them rather than their rational mind, which they don't really have at that age. So remembering that as we're going through is going to be very important. But I think, if anything, we just need to be observant, aware, and ask further questions. Try and delve a little bit deeper. If you notice that a student's gone all of a sudden very quiet and you're on a topic of conversation, try and speak to them and just find out a bit more, because as a head of year, without teachers and people that work in the classrooms, we would struggle to know anything about the children because we don't see them all the time. So please be observant, please be aware, and just ask about them. What have you been up to? How are you? How's your badminton? Have you managed to get back and play? Are you still representing the country for tennis, etc.? So asking those things is great. So this is another little activity for you. So if you have a pen and a paper, please draw yourself a circle on that. It can be as big or as little as you would like. And in there, I'd like you to list in priority order your top 5 current values, your values aligned priorities. So for example, family, friends, exercise, space away from the laptop, schoolwork, etc. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that and I'll stop talking. So sometimes actually when you have to think about 5 value lined up priorities, it's quite a challenge. Try and sit there and give yourself some space to recognize what's important to you. And all these little activities that I've done with you so far are things that I do with students, things that I do with my year group, just when you've got time in tutor period or at the beginning of a lesson. Things like this, I think, are really, really important, especially as we head back into school and we're in hybrid for child protection, safeguarding and pastoral care. And the reason we get to do this is because these aligned priorities are yours and they're very personal to you. And I cannot tell you what your value aligned priorities are. So whenever you recognize that you're doing something that isn't aligning with those 5 priorities, I think it's really important that you think, are these going to overflow your cup? Are they going to make you stressed? Are they going to push you over the edge, that therefore your family evening has disappeared or your meeting with your friends has disappeared because you've given yourself too much to do? And I think that's really important. And the same when you're in work, you know, approaching people and saying, look, I can't do that today. I can't take on that job because I haven't got the time, I haven't got the space. And I think it's important that we help the students understand that, especially as we move back in, it's going to be very overwhelming. So the final part is there an aspect of student wellbeing that colleagues can support in order to remotivate, or I have put to identify barriers or possibilities to inspire learners? Because going back in, especially online, it is really hard to identify those. So I've put them into 3 categories. The pictures are very small. I apologize, but I can always send anything out if anyone would like any copies. So often, every couple of weeks with my classes, I'll do some check-ins with them, ask them to write what emoji they are, what emoji reflects them, especially for the younger year groups. That's normally a little bit easier than picking a word that they might not understand, especially internationally if their English is not as great as their normal tongue, their mother tongue. A 2-word check-in. So how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling about today? How are you feeling about the week? Asking them to look at the feelings wheel, similar to like the one we did at the beginning, but in a different format. But also meaningful conversations. You know, how have you been this week? Or has anything helped your well-being this week? How will I get up and move today? So just trying to support them in recognizing and opening, and you'll find out so much about those children as you go through. The next one I've put is developing understanding. I think this is another way, and this is not just for us, this is for the students as well, developing their own understanding of themselves. So there was, I don't know if many of you know Sadie Hollins, she works in Thailand. She's a blogger for Wise Education. She's really good. And she talked about a well-being fingerprint after she'd done some research. And I took the idea from her after chatting, and with my year 13s, I got them to identify what's their well-being. My well-being is very different to my sister's well-being. We expect different things. And as you can probably just about see on the PowerPoint, physical health is the top of my well-being. If I don't exercise at least every other day, I'm just crazy. I'm not that great to be around. It's just something that I need to do. Then it's my emotional well-being, then it's my mental health, then my relational well-being, etc. But for someone else, it could be their environment. If their environment isn't clean, it's not going to be a great day to work. It could be their relationships with people. You know, they might feel that they need to be around people to be successful or do well on that day. So everyone's well-being is different, and it's a good way to have that conversation with students and find out a little bit more and how can we support their well-being. The one on red, blue and green is looking at emotions. Again, if you found a student that, for example, might be their first day at school, it might be their first day they've returned, and you can ask them, what colour out of red, blue or green are you feeling today? And show them this. And if they pick red, where they say, oh, I didn't expect that, or I didn't expect those results, it's made me really angry, how dare you ask me those questions, then it's probably good that you give that child some space and reevaluate in an hour or so. But if they're green, then that's great. You can understand how those students respond to different situations, which will really support their well-being. Stress signs. So this is normally a good one to draw on big pieces of paper, roll it all out, get them to draw around themselves and write down the stress signs. See if they can reflect on what makes them stressed. What do they notice? Is it that they go and make themselves some food if they start to feel stressed? Do they get palpitations? Do they get headaches? So if they can start to recognize those and they can communicate that to us, or we might know that about them, then we can hopefully prevent some situations. And also I've just done this with the year 13s as they're going into their mock exams to try and keep them calm, because some of them are panicking after not actually stepping foot in school for one, and also being online for near enough the whole of their IB, bless them. So they are trying to prepare for that. But what can they control? They can't control what's on that exam paper. They can control how early they arrive at school, so they're not late. So just looking at those different situations, what can you control, what can't you control, and try and prevent any anxieties that might come from there. And finally is just space to find out more. Often with students that I find that may be disengaged or may have had quite a big behaviour change, things that all send alerts to us quite quickly as teachers for child protection. But I'll often use something called a living graph. And you can get them to draw it in a bar chart or in a line graph or in any form that's easier for them. And for example, if you've noticed since January that their behaviour is changing, or they're not attending lessons as much, or they've gone very quiet when they're normally quite vocal, all these things that were a bit like, oh, that's strange. Meet with them, get them to draw it, get them to write out the months, January, February, March, April, May, etc. Get them to draw a bar chart on how they were feeling at that time. And then you have that time to delve into those a little bit more and say, oh, in February, I noticed you've drawn that at the lowest. Can you tell me about your experiences in February? Or can you tell me what difficulties you might have had? So instead of presuming that you understand why they are unmotivated or disengaged, you're actually going to try and find out why. And that might help with your well-being, but also with your relationship, which helps with motivation. If they feel that they are understood, they will be motivated most of the time in your lesson with a relationship. You can also ask questions to try and delve deeper in, what do you like to do best? Oh, I like to go horse riding. Well, what makes you good at going horse riding? And try and find out those strengths and characteristics about them that will help in situations where you might notice a lack of motivation, you might notice some disengagement, especially as they move into hybrid or back into school. So yeah, that's everything from me. If you have any questions, please ask. I'm done.
Thank you, Annie. That was amazing. Wonderful. The one thing that a few people have been mentioning is how small you put so much onto that one slide that they can't actually see all the individual things you were saying. So I don't know if it's possible, maybe you could separate those out to have a slide for each one. So when we share it, we could maybe do the presentation, because it was great and there's so much there and so much to take in, that some were saying we can't see it, which is a shame.
Yeah, no problem. I knew it was going to be very small. I will put them onto separate.
That would be really helpful. I think that there's been loads of conversations going on in the chat about how interesting it is. I'm just having a quick look at some of the questions that are there actually. We've got who else have we got in the, I'm trying to see the chat. So basically it's actually, I think David from Uganda, David Mundu, was actually, how can teachers and communities inspire children to look after their mental health, their own mental health and well-being? It's all right, teachers watching out for them. How do you get the children to think about that themselves? I think, especially if they're not in school. That's a difficult one. Can you answer that, Annie?
I think what's important is starting to encourage them to talk and allowing them the space to do that, like looking at stress signals. You know, can you identify when you are starting to be stressed? If they can start to identify that, like for me, if I start to get stressed, I notice I get quite snappy or I get really tired. So maybe if they can start to look at those things, they can say to you, you know, I think I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed. I'm really tired today. I feel like I'm going to be quite argumentative. Then we can be like, okay, let's look at what we can do to support you. What's happened over the past couple of days? What's coming up? Why do you think that is? And I think it's just allowing them that space to do that, but also checking in with them, make it a culture, do it every couple of weeks in your class. And then it'll start to become something, then you'll start to notice it yourself without them doing it, but they'll also notice it and hopefully raise it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, it is like I say, because everyone's such an individual as well, isn't it? It's knowing, I think, knowing your students, but having not spent time with them, that's another difficult one, isn't it? Again, there are a few other questions also about age groups, obviously, that they need to adapt it slightly for the younger age group and for teenagers, because obviously they're all going to respond in a different way. So it might be, it's a rather large, a large topic, but do you have any ideas on maybe how you'd focus on different age groups, how you'd help maybe the primary age as opposed to the teenagers, how you differentiate?
Yeah, I know some of my colleagues in early years with the young ones that go like 3, 4 and upwards, is for emotions they often use different colours. So they'll come into their Zoom and say, you know, pick a colour, and they've got set colours. You know, it's red if you're feeling sad, blue if you're feeling happy, yellow if you're feeling confused. And they kind of do a lot of sessions around that. So often it's, and like the emoji ones might be better for primary rather than using words. If they can look at emoji and go, oh yeah, that's me today, and then that's a little bit easier. So it's just using that, but also with the questions, you know, how are you going to get up and move today? It could just be, okay, we're going to get up and move today. Has anybody got any ideas on what we can do? More of a collective is probably a bit easier than individual for the younger ones.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. And I'm really aware that unfortunately you can't stay with us to the end. So thank you so much for engaging.
That's okay.
Actually,
thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put everybody on the spot, because what we'd like to do is everybody turn your cameras on, because we'd like to see everybody participating, and we're going to have a photo shoot. This is another thing we're going to try and introduce. We're going to have a group photo shot. So you don't have to keep your camera on all the time, but if you could put it on for a couple of minutes now, we're all going, my colleagues are going to try and take a screenshot of us. Everybody who's here taking part, we're going to have a photo shoot. So stick your cameras on for a couple of minutes for us and let's say hi. Go on, I dare you. Please try. Let's see if we can see everybody. You can change the view if you want to see more people. Okay, we all are we ready for a photo? Somebody who's taking the photograph? Yasmin, can I ask you, are you taking it?
Yep, I'm on it.
Fantastic, Yasmin. So let me know when you've taken the photograph, and I can warn people that they don't have to keep smiling or looking good or brushing the hair.
Okay.
We got some nice screenshots of people. I hope so. Some lovely looking people out there. Fantastic. Is that us already think? Thank you for that, Yasmin. That's wonderful. I was also had another. I'll share my screen again because we've also got the one more poll to ask you about, and the other thing was that I didn't announce at the beginning because I wanted to make sure that we had a couple of our members with us. Because like at the beginning I said we have a school membership and we have an ambassador pro for teachers, and we have an ambassador pro for active members, but we've actually got a step up from that. We've got some amazing and really inspirational teachers amongst us, and we've put on a higher level even still, and we're going to put country leaders in for our ambassador pros, because some of our ambassador pros are really active, and there's 2 that we are going to award as country leaders immediately, who are a great inspirations and a great role models to follow. And I'm going to embarrass them in a minute and tell you who they are. But this is something you can aspire to as an Ambassador Pro. So the role is to be a leader within your country for the Global School Alliance, because we've all got the same vision of improving education and sharing the ideas, to be a point of contact for when we start our trips to visit the areas, and obviously to share all the opportunities, all the competitions, and be somebody who can organise this. And the first one I'm going to put on the spot is Fethi. I don't know if you want to say anything, Fethi, but Fethi has been amazing in Tunisia. He has got lots of, been spreading the world. He's been part of lots of our conferences as a speaker. He's doing vlogs for us and everything. So Fethi, would you like to say hello and say anything? But you are our first country leader.
Yeah, hi, Tony. Thank you. Thank you for the trust and thank you for this recognition. I highly appreciate it, and this will push me further to invite more educators to join this amazing Global School Alliance. Thank you for the trust. I'll do my best. And be sure, in Tunisia, we have great educators from all disciplines, from English, maths, computer science, all of them. They are amazed by your Global School Alliance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fethi. You're an inspiration to us all, and welcome as one of our first country leaders. And the other person who I'm going to put on the spot now, I'm hoping his internet is working, is David Muhindo from Uganda. David, are you there? You're our second country leader. Welcome. Are you able to join us and say hello? Are you there, David?
Yes, hello, Tony.
Hi, David.
Hey, everyone. A very good evening here from Uganda. I'm really happy to be part of this family. And indeed, we are going to join together our hands, which will waste change. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. David, when he first joined us, was only a couple of schools in Uganda. We now have nearly 90 schools, thanks to David spreading the word. He's formed a group on the platform for East African countries, and he has a very active WhatsApp group where he's so supportive in the community. He's doing a fantastic, inspirational job. Thank you, David. So, things to celebrate. Let's go ahead for our next participation bit. So, I feel like I'm a host of a game show here. We're going to look at the next survey, which James is actually going to run for us again. But the question 2 is, how challenging do you think it'll be to remotivate students after the summer break? And we've all got good ideas now, thanks to Annie. James, are you okay to run the poll and take over from me?
There we go.
Are you there, James?
Yeah, I've just launched it, Tony.
Fantastic.
So maybe Abena can tell me in a moment if there's any responses.
Can people see it, I hope?
I can't see it though, James.
Aha.
Did you say you can't?
No.
Not yet.
Okay, one
James,
moment.
maybe
Try
launch
again.
it again.
Can you see that now?
No.
No.
Oh dear.
Oh, what a shame.
One more go.
But I'm lucky.
Yeah, here we go.
Oh.
You're not there yet?
No.
Should I stop sharing? Would that make a difference?
Oh yes, that could be it actually. Do you want to
Let
stop
me
sharing?
stop sharing. You can all look at James now. James, you try.
Yeah, do. I'm not very pretty, but I'll try. Here we go. Sorry, just trying to do that again.
Oh dear.
Oh, what a shame. If we
Still
don't
not
manage it,
coming
don't
up.
worry.
Can you see that now?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Don't worry.
okay, never
We'll try
mind.
again on the next one.
We will try. We've got a couple more to try, but I don't really want to spend any more time fiddling with technology, which has bane of my life. So basically, Jason, we want to hear from you now. Is that okay? Are you okay to take over?
Of course, thank you very much. I'm just looking at my strange floaty head, and I think I am going to stop my video because it is a little bit off-putting at the moment. I'm even put myself off a little bit, but I am just going to stop my video, but I will come on at the end when we answer any questions, if that's okay with you. So I'll stop my video, and I'm just going to share my screen, which is here. Can I just have a confirmation you can see that? Is that okay? Fantastic, excellent. Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Jason Horn. I am a subject improvement advisor for maths at the Education People. And now I'd just like to say how grateful I'm here it is to be with you today. It's a massive passion of mine to support in motivating pupils in maths and making sure that pupils are inspired in maths as well. I know maths is often that subject where sometimes children and even adults themselves feel like they're not good at it, or that it's something that they need to work on. And I think it is something that we really, as educators, need to provide that motivation and that inspiration to pupils as well. So a brief look at my role in education. I worked as a teacher for 11 years, and a significant time of that was being a key leader and focusing on the improvement of maths. Just as lockdown 1 happened in the UK, I started a new role at the Education People where I became a full-time maths advisor. So that means I actually haven't done the job of being a maths advisor in schools for that much time at all, really. I was just saying, I've only done it really since June this year that I've been able to go out into schools. But it does mean that I've been quite good at supporting schools using Zoom and other online platforms as well. Now, I trained as an NCTM mastery specialist 6 years ago. And I've supported a lot of schools on their own mastery maths journey, and I still continue to do that with the Maths Hub as well here in the UK. I was incredibly fortunate in 2016 to go and visit Shanghai as part of the Shanghai England Exchange. And the thing that I feel is that I use the experiences that I gained firsthand in teaching maths in China, as well as the latest developments, the latest pedagogic research in maths, to support all the schools that I work with currently and all the teachers I work with currently as well. Now, as you can probably tell by the way I'm talking, I am really passionate about ensuring the improvement of maths teaching, and particularly that learning for all children. I think that's really important that we have that understanding that all children can be successful in maths. Now, I really do specialise in the use of manipulatives and representations to support children in learning of all year groups. I think that's really important that all year groups are using manipulatives and representations. Really focusing on that fluency as well, that children have got the fluency in maths, and that they're able to use that to reason and problem solve as well. Within whatever maths curriculum you're following, I think that's something that's very, very important. And again, the other thing that I'm really passionate about is promoting opportunities for pupils to work at greater depth. Now, as part of the team that I work with at Education People, we've been working really hard over the last 2 years to support schools and subject leaders in assessing pupils and closing those gaps as well. Now, we're doing that across the board. The main thing that we have maintained the whole time within closing those gaps and assessing pupils is that that's got to be engaging, and it has to motivate pupils. But it's also got to allow those pupils the skills and knowledge to be masterful in their journey as well. So it's finding that sweet spot of finding the gaps, but also allowing them to be, you know, still have that motivation and that inspiration. So how can we inspire pupils post-COVID? Now, I think most of us understand that students, no matter where we are in the world, are going to be feeling pressured with an idea that they've missed some kind of content from the previous year, or they might not have that deep understanding of a particular context in their learning that they would have had before COVID. So as teachers, we've got to make it the best for those pupils, to make it seem that that learning is manageable. Now, in the best of times, we know that often our curriculum makes pupils feel overwhelmed by the amount that they need to learn. And often when they do feel overwhelmed, they're unable to make those connections to what they already know. And as educators, we all know that's where misconceptions occur. We know that's where pupils aren't making their links in their schema, and that's where the connections aren't happening, and that's where these massive misconceptions, certainly in maths, do occur. So as educators, we really do need to make those explicit connections to what's been previously taught and create that familiarity so that pupils understand the previous learning is the foundation of what they are about to learn. Now, it's all well and good me saying that, but I wanted to give you hopefully some evidence here now on the next couple of slides to prove that this can happen and we should do it this way. So first of all, I want to use the example again of the Christchurch earthquake. So Professor Hattie was an advisor for the New Zealand Qualification Authority, and they were the people that oversaw the schools examinations after the Christchurch earthquakes in 2011. Now, the most important things were that schools were closed for weeks, but unlike what's happened with us now, students did not have that opportunity for online learning or discussion with teachers. However, what they did see from this was that results did not suffer, and actually pupils in high schools did really well still. In fact, students' performance actually went up in the final exams after the Christchurch earthquake. Now, what Professor Hattie found, and he said that the big difference was that teachers started focusing on what has to be learnt instead of looking at their whole massive curriculum and thinking, oh, we've got to get through a whole lot of curriculum here. They made sure that it was important that the learning became manageable for the pupils. And that's what we still need to do. We need to really find that learning can become manageable. I also want to use this evidence here of Japan. Now, Japan has shown similar evidence. In the TIMSS curriculum, they only teach 54% of the TIMSS curriculum. But in that TIMSS international assessment, the pupils on average score 70%. They're teaching less, but they're actually achieving more. And the way they achieve this is by the teachers teaching less, but teaching it incredibly well. The teachers understand the vital parts and they ensure that children can reason and make the connections within that maths. The students have the confidence to approach unfamiliar content by making the connections to the previous learning. And that's something that we've really got to do. So as you can see from this slide, less can definitely be more. So then I started thinking about external factors that have a negative bearing on students. And what I thought that would be was teachers also feeling that catch-up pressure. Us as teachers feel the same pressure as the pupils do at the moment, in that there is a lot of content that needs to be delivered and caught up upon. We've got that feeling that we haven't managed to cover it in as much depth as we would have done previously. And what happens from that is teachers start rushing and then not allowing the pupils to build upon the previous learning. So instead, we need to focus on the essential foundations and really make sure that pupils and teachers have a secure understanding what these essential foundations are. They should definitely be taught in a highly structured way. And one of the ways of doing that is manipulatives. I'm going to later show the idea of TENS frames, and that is a brilliant resource to use throughout the school as a way of that highly structured way to make connections. Now, my main advice would be to keep calm and make sure you teach the basics. So as I mentioned there, manipulatives, and I want to talk a little bit more about the manipulatives. If you haven't seen these documents before, they're from the EEF guidance reports. There is a link on here, and I'm sure you're going to get this PowerPoint later on as well. Now, there are two, they're actually separated in two guidance reports, but the guidance reports look at early years all the way up to Key Stage 3. And in both of these, there's explicit recommendations on using manipulatives and representations to develop mathematical understanding. What it shows is that manipulatives really do help children make sense of mathematical concepts. They develop visual images and allow pupils to develop those visual images. They increase the engagement and enjoyment of maths as well. And one of the most important things that we often don't think about is that manipulatives allow us as practitioners to see what children can understand and provide that bridge to the abstract thinking. So the aim of a manipulative is, or representations, is to reveal that mathematical structure. Just by looking at it, children can see what addition's about. They can see what multiplication's about. And by doing that, pupils will start to understand and use mathematics more independently. Children should see the idea of the support of a manipulative and start linking that to the mathematical idea that it represents. Now, as I said earlier, using a consistent manipulative across the school, such as tens frames, is a really fantastic way for pupils to see the connections, because they can see what they're learning in the new maths that they're learning is making that link, and they're being able to apply that with the knowledge of their own knowledge about maths as well. They're able to connect it with their previous schemas. So I wanted to come up, or I was thinking about a really practical way in which we can remotivate learners. And that for me is using 10 frames. Now, this linked resource that I've got here was created by my colleagues and I during COVID to support schools in closing gaps that may have risen during school closures, and also by remote learning. We've all been part of that remote learning where some children aren't engaging as much as we want, or they weren't able to take part as much as we want. Now, this resource can be used by adults to develop pupils' understanding of early maths. Its main aims was to ensure that pupils have that deep, secure understanding of number, addition, and subtraction. Once we've got that, we're able to build upon that with our multiplication and division and fractions as well. It can also be able to use to support pupils who have those big learning gaps in areas of early mathematics. Often when we see a pupil that's unable to do something higher up the school, it will always be linked back to some issue with early mathematics, and this resource helps to close that gap. It's to be used alongside pupils, and it gives activities to complete with children. Now, the real reason that my colleagues and I have really focused on the tens frame is it is a resource that can easily be made with household objects and items, and therefore all of the activities that are within this can be sent home to pupils. So that means that the tens frames are suitable for classroom, and more importantly, that hybrid learning, and they're a great tool for parents to support with continuing support learning at home as well. Now, I thought about some new platforms or some tools that you might not have seen, but also are helping to remotivate learners as well. So here are some tools that I've noticed over the last couple of years, and I thought I just wanted to share with you as well. By the way, I'm not getting paid by any of these companies, so I'm just doing it out of, trying to share something with you. The first is a really cost-effective resource, and it's called Number Stacks. It's a unique tool, and its main unique feature of this program is it only uses a limited number of resources, and it builds familiarity, like we were saying, while allowing for a lot of key skills to be introduced and secured. So what happens within the Number Stacks platform is that it breaks the key skills into number and place value, addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, fractions, and decimals and percentages. So it's worthwhile having a look. There are lots of free resources on their website as well, which I'd say have a look at them. It might be useful for you in school. And the real thing I want to share with you is a free resource as well. So these are KCS curriculum inspiration booklets. And they were designed to help children consolidate their learning experiences through the use of manipulatives and give ideas of other ways that a manipulative could be used. They're absolutely brilliant. I've looked at them myself when I thought about, I've got these manipulatives in my classroom, but how else can I use them? These are a fantastic resource to go and have a look at. On the slides here, you can see examples from the tens frame booklet. But if you go onto the website, you'll also find additional booklets for a whole wide range of manipulatives. So you can see here, I just wanted to give some ideas about percentages, ratio, and how we can use, again, tens frames to support the learning of those things as well. We're coming to the end of that. It was really quick, 15 minutes. I thought, oh, I've got to try and give you as much information as I can. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I've given you practical advice and shown you information which you hopefully have not seen before. Now, just to talk about the advisors and the advisors I work with at education people, my colleagues and I always seek to support schools in any way we can. We try and use the most up-to-date research and high-quality resources. As you can see, we're not about the sales. As I'm showing you other resources that you can go and get free as well. If you'd like any further discussion or support, email me there. There's my email. And I'd just like to say thank you as well. Let me just end the slides and come back onto screen.
Oh, Jason, thank you very much. And like you say, there's lots of wonderfully practical ideas there, which I think people will find useful. And so don't worry, everybody, we are sharing the recording at the end and the presentation, so you can see the links again. If you want, Jason, you can drop those maybe into the chat so people can actually see your email as well there. But I think that was wonderful. Does anyone have any particular questions? I'm not sure. I presume, are you okay to share these things abroad? It doesn't matter which country they're in?
Does not matter what country they're in. The resources I've particularly chosen, if they have got anything that's, talking about a UK curriculum, all of them are based on fantastic maths teaching. And I think that's the thing to take out of that. Any of those resources I have shared, if it does talk about an English curriculum, do not worry, it's talking about fantastic maths teaching as well.
That's what I love about maths. It's actually a universal language again, isn't it? Maths is universal and it has a language of its own, which I always find confusing, but it is amazing. And thank you so much for that, Jason. I'm actually really aware that I'm getting a bit behind on my time because I talked too much. We have Daniel join us, but Abina, sorry. Are you okay to take over so we can, I know we've got two more lovely speakers to hear. So if you're okay, Abina, are you okay to take over now? Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Hello, yes, I'm here. I'm just, let me just tidy up something. I'm just tidying up my...
admiring your wonderful backdrop. We just want to be in that.
I like it too. Okay, so I will share with you the way I usually work when I do these. And there have been so many of them over the last year or so. Oh, let me reapply my lippy because I don't feel right without my lipstick. There we are. So anyway, what I usually do, because I'm introducing myself, I'm going to show you the video so you know who I am. But then when I start presenting, I'm going to switch off my video because I think it's information overload, and what you should be looking at is the presentation rather than trying to figure out what I'm doing in the background. So I'll do that. So to introduce myself, I will put that presentation up in a moment, but I'll introduce myself while you're still looking at me. So my name's Abina Akufo-Kelly. I'm head of computer science and ICT at a boys' school in England, Medway. I'm also really involved in the computer science edutech sort of sphere. So recently I was the judge at the BET Awards, which is the British Educational Technology Awards. So I'm really interested in that sort of thing. I'm also what's called a CAS Master Teacher. So Computing at School is this organization that we have in England. And I'm a CAS Master Teacher. They were trying to use that role to teach other teachers how to become computer science teachers. They now have a new, that didn't work as well as they wanted it to. So they now have a new role called NCCE, which is National Centre of Computing Excellence Facilitator. So that's what I do as well. We have a real issue with finding computer science teachers, people who are computer science educated, they have degrees and so on. So what we're doing to try to get more computer science teachers is to actually train current teachers, get computer science teachers like myself to train current teachers to become computer science. So we're nabbing them from other subjects, say from maths or from English or wherever, and then they can actually then go on to teach computer science. So that's one of the things that I do as well. I'm also a member of the Chartered College of Teaching, which is a sort of organization which tries to use evidence-informed research to impact on education. So instead of when your senior leaders come to you and say, you must start doing this, and you say, why? Well, the Chartered College of Teaching actually researches what is effective in education and what are the tools that you can use to try to maximize what you're doing with the students. And we all have limited time. I don't want to waste any time doing things which are not going to have an impact. So it's really important that everything I do is evidence informed. And I'll be talking about that and how you could use some of the things, the research that I've looked into to try to maximize on what you're doing with the students, because we've lost so much time that we need to make time up. And there are things which you can actually get the students to do things faster and to think more for themselves. So I'll be talking about that as well. I'm also involved in my union, the teaching union, National Education Union. I'm a rep. I'm also a learning officer. So I create training opportunities for union members. And I'm also a women's officer. And I'm also a counsellor. So not a counsellor as in I help people with mental health issues, which is very important, but as a counsellor is in, you know, sort of politics. So I'm a counsellor as well and a trustee of an international charity as well. So I am now going to share my, yes, I try to get quite a lot in. I get bored easily, so I just try to ram as much in as possible. So anyway, I'm going to share my presentation with you now, and you might see a repetition of some of that, but I will make sure that I don't actually repeat it. So share. I hope you can see it. Yes. Please thumbs up from somebody if you can actually see it. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay then. And then thumbs up if it actually starts showing as well. Yeah. Okay. So I've told you most of this already. If you want to find out what I'm about, I'm on LinkedIn, Abna Akufo Kelly, and my Twitter handle is at Akufo _ Akufo _ Kelly. You're more than welcome to follow me, and I'll follow you back. I follow everyone who follows me. It's as simple as that, because you know, the more people you follow, the more you learn. So, and I love sharing. So that's me. Now, I live by this adage. I think this is so, so, so important. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. And I have heard that so many times. And it was only when I was researching for this presentation that I found out who said it. So apparently it was Ian McLaren. But I think if you think that way, you can't go wrong. The other thing, you know, because I'm a Christian as well, the other thing I always remember is do unto others as you'll have them do unto you. So I really believe in the fact that as a teacher, I am in loco parentis. I am in place of the parent. The parent isn't there. And every single time students enter my classroom, I am the responsible adult. I need to care for them the same way that I would care for my own child. And so if I keep that in mind, that pays dividends. So I just want to ask, and I'll look on the chat because I don't mind being interactive. Could you tell me, what do you think impacts on children? What are the things that are sort of impacting on children, or the children that you're teaching? What's going on in their heads when you're trying to teach them? Could you just write it down in the chat? Yeah, that's a word that I've got in my presentation. Anything else? I'll count down from 10. I know some people might not want to be interactive, so I'll just get on with it. So I'll count down from 10 in my head. And if you don't have it, understand, yeah, definitely. That's so important. Bureaucracy. I think maybe that's going on in our heads. The environment at home. Yeah, that is so important. Anxious from you at the beginning. Have they eaten? Yeah, so important. If your tummy's rumbling, you can't think, can you? Interest. Okay, thank you so much for those of you who interacted. And yeah, as I said, one of the things I put is family. You know, so the economic sort of background of your family, if you're more affluent or if you're a poorer family, that's going to impact on how you can learn. During the pandemic in England, I'm not sure what it's like in other countries, I'm sure it was very similar. We had to provide, some children did not have access to the internet. And therefore, because they didn't have access to the internet, or they didn't have access to devices, they couldn't actually be involved in that online learning. Some of them had to be given devices, or some of them, they would be using a little phone screen to be able to actually be taught. That is a major issue. I forgot I haven't switched my my camera off. It's putting me off looking at myself. Okay, so your family really is an impact on how you can actually engage with your teacher as well. If you have any siblings, if you don't have any siblings, you know, everybody knows that sometimes as a lone child, you're going to get more more of an attachment to your parents, and you're going to get more from your parents as they don't have to sort of divide their attention. If, for example, you're a carer to a parent, if your parents are divorced, there's so much going on in the students' heads when they're sitting in front of you. And that's why that thing that I said about you don't know what's going on in people's lives, be kind always, because if you keep that in mind, that's when you're going to think, right, okay, I have to do this slightly differently because this is going to make an impact. So the other one, and this is so important, and I think one of the other speakers spoke about it, friends and peers. You know, it could be the fact that they're involved in bullying or cyberbullying. It could be just peer pressure in general. And somebody actually wrote that down, peer pressure in general. We all know social media has an amazing impact. You know, there are some really, really positives, and I don't want to say negatives about social media. I know as a professional, social media, Twitter is absolutely amazing for the amount of information I can get on it. Facebook, you've got Facebook groups, which you can get so much information from. If you are a child who's from a marginalized background, so maybe you're an LGBT child, you can get quite a lot. You can have a feeling of community by using social media. So there are positives, but there are also negatives. There's this over-sexualization of children on social media. There's that perfectionism. I don't know if you've heard of it, but FOMO, fear of losing out, you know, of missing out. You see these sorts of curated images of people really enjoying themselves and doing these amazing things, and then you think that's actually real when in fact it's just a lie. So there's that as well that is impacting on the students. The school environment as well. What is the ethos of the school? Every single school is its own sort of microorganism, isn't it? Every single school has its own character. The school will impact how the student feels. The building, is it a rundown building? Is it a new building? Is it brand spanking new? Do they have all the most amazing facilities? That's going to impact on the student as well. And of course, the leadership. Who are those people who are making the decisions? Are they making the right decisions for the students? Finally, but there's obviously, there's always a lot more, but these are the ones that I want to cover. The built environment. So where do they live? You know, do they come from an affluent area where they have green spaces? Again, during the pandemic, there were so many people in England who decided to move to bigger houses so they could have a garden, because during lockdown, you were stuck in your home. You couldn't go anywhere. So if you lived in a flat, where are you going to go to exercise? Where are you going to go to actually get some fresh air? So your built environment is so important. Your community is so important. Are there people around you who support you? I just went on holiday with my daughter, and where we live is a really lovely area, but we went to, we have this thing called Airbnb, and yeah, it's all around the world, isn't it? And we stayed on a farm, and they had stables and they had horses and they had acres of land. And at home, if my daughter opened the door and said, "Mom, I'm just going to go out," I'll be like, "No way, are you crazy?" But there, it was an enclosed space. I knew the horses were there were dogs, and she would just pop out and say, "Mom, I'm just going to walk around the fields." And I could let her do that. That made a big difference. It really made me think about how where you live makes a difference to your freedom and your sense of self. And then obviously, this year there has been coronavirus, and that's why I've got it on top, sort of, in addition to all those other things that our students are dealing with, they have the weight of coronavirus heavy upon them. So they have so much to think about. Okay, so I think it's really, really important for your school to be trauma informed. Now, this, you know, it may seem, some people might look at what I'm talking about and think, are you going to talk about motivation? Well, how can you be motivated if you're stressed out? How can you be motivated if at home you've got somebody who you need to care for? How can you be motivated if at home you don't have any space for yourself? So before we can start talking about motivation, we need to think about the mental health of the child. And if we get the mental health of the child right, and we consider the child, then they can actually be motivated because they feel content. How many of you, feel excited about working when you feel rubbish? When somebody's telling you, we have this saying in England, you can either use the carrot or the stick. If somebody is using the stick on you and whipping you and telling you you're rubbish and you're stupid, how's that going to motivate you? Whereas if somebody is actually using the carrot, I'm not saying that children are horses, so please don't get me wrong. But if somebody's using the carrot and they're actually using something positive and they're telling you how well you're doing, that's more likely to motivate you. So one of the things that my school did during the pandemic, we said over and over and over again, especially during lockdown, when we were working from home, the children were working from home, we were working from home, we made sure that we regularly contacted the children. We made phone calls home as tutors to see how they were doing and to speak to their parents as well. And the parents were so grateful that people were checking in on them. But it also was so important to make sure that we maintained that relationship with them, that they knew that we cared. And we made sure we used Google Classroom as our platform, and we made sure that we created year group classrooms. So those year group classrooms, the children could still interact with their head of year, they could still interact with their tutor group, and we actually had online tutor groups. So it wasn't just the academic that we were focusing on, we were also focusing on pastoral. So we had online tutor groups, and they'll just check in, and it was a very sort of relaxed, safe space where we'll just say, how are you doing? Have you managed to do any of your lessons today? Have you had any issues? What are the issues, so we could pick them up? We also told the students, if they did attend those online sessions, we congratulated them on that, because as adults, many adults were having mental health issues being in lockdown. Imagine the students. So even just turning up to a lesson was something to congratulate them on. Turning up to the lesson and engaging was another thing to congratulate them on. And then when they came back into school, making sure that, you know, they continued with those same tutor groups, and we continued to foster those relationships that we were trying to continue during lockdown. Children need predictability and consistency. The pandemic took that completely away. So coming back into school, another thing that we did tours, virtual tours around the school before the students actually came back in. And then when they came back in, when we did our staggered starts, we made sure that we showed them the systems that we were going to be using to make sure that we minimized any of those COVID issues. So we were in bubbles. We had certain routes that different year groups had to take around the school. We had dedicated areas of the school for each year group, and we made sure that they were very, very familiar, they were very comfortable with all of those, and we even discussed it in tutor groups as well. So before we actually started with the academic, they were comfortable with the new regime. That was so important. Power with strategies. So actually giving them the opportunity to say what they would like. Student voice is so important. It's so important to ask them, what's the issue? What are the problems? What can we do to help you? How do you think we can help you actually? What do you think you can do to improve? It's so important to do that, rather than expecting the students to just do what you're supposed to, you know, do what you tell them to do, engage them. Co-regulation and emotional growth. What I mean by that is, I had issues over the pandemic. I had issues with mental health as well. And I felt it was so important to actually say that to the students, because some of the students come in, and of course, most of the time we're supposed to be the strong adult. We're supposed to be the people who know what's what, but it's all right to tell them that it's all right not to be okay. So some students were having mental health issues, and you'll say to them, look, it's a pandemic. You know, there are thousands of people dying on a daily basis. Don't be so hard on yourself. I have had the same issues as you have. Many people have had the same issues as you have. It's fine, and you're doing great. You're doing really, really well. You're back in school. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're doing great. Don't worry too much about what happened over lockdown. If you didn't engage as much as you would like to, that's fine. I know lots of students couldn't engage because they were used to being taught a certain way. They were used to having the teacher in the room with them, and then having to be taught in a different way. They couldn't engage, they couldn't understand. So I always said to my students, and this is what I said, and I think it made a big difference. I said to them, don't worry about lockdown. If you missed anything, we're going to go over it again. Those of you who did really well and did actually engage during lockdown, that's absolutely fine. Well done to you. And I gave them some merits, but we're going to go over it again anyway, just to make sure 100% that you know what's what. And that is so important. And so many of them, they had come into school thinking that I was going to shout at them, why didn't you do any work? And as soon as I said, don't worry about it, you could actually hear them, the sigh of relief and the weight lifted off them. So that is so, so important. So, okay, so when we're talking about motivation, we have the extrinsic and the intrinsic. So because of the interest and enjoyment in the task itself, you have the intrinsic. So enjoyment, purpose, curiosity, passion. Now, I would say most of the students, they have enjoyment in playing games. They have enjoyment in using social media. So they will naturally just do it without you having to say something to them. But we need to make sure we try to foster that intrinsic joy in education for them, and I'll come on to some strategies in a minute. So because of the outcome, again, it was really, really important. So I had some students who came in and they were like, I'm going to fail, I'm going to completely fail, I didn't do anything over lockdown, and I'm going to fail. I'm sorry if people are putting things in the chat. I noticed there's 42. I haven't looked at them because I'm trying to concentrate on doing this. I will look at them afterwards. So they would tell me, I'm going to completely fail, and I said, no, you're not. We have made special dispensations for the fact that COVID has happened. We understand, the government understands that there's so much that you've missed out on. So you're going to have a reduced amount of things that you're going to cover. And actually, I think you're at an advantage compared to some people, because if you didn't do any work prior to this, you now have a set amount of time where if you work really, really hard, and I have evidence that you've worked really, really hard, you can actually get a really good grade. So from now on, forget about what happened. From now, work as hard as you possibly can, and you can actually do really well. And I had students who, I teach computer science, and I teach what's called creative media, which is graphics and videos and animation and such like. And I had some students who, after having that talk with them, they went from not passing to actually getting what's called a merit or distinction. So that's equivalent to a B or an A, because they thought, actually, I have a chance. I thought I didn't have a chance, but I actually have a chance. I can actually get a grade now. It's really, really important that we have a balance between those two. We want the students to enjoy what they're being taught, but obviously there's a reason that they have to be taught it. And there are certain things they're not going to be enjoyable, but they have to be learned. So some of the things that we did, we had house competitions. Even over lockdown, we had Friday challenges. We'll get them to do, trying to do some, it's a boys' school, so we try to include lots of sports things. So doing headers on their heads, and, how many could you do, a drawing competition, and then people have to try to figure out who you drawn. We did tutor time quizzes. We had a school project where they had to plant some sunflowers. We had we learnt about co and self-regulation, which I was talking about as well, postcards, homes, and regular telephone calls. And we replicated the school structure on Google Classroom, so that the students, even though they weren't in school, they felt like they were in school because they were still having the same sorts of interactions. And I've already spoken about the virtual tours, followed up by the in real life tours. So we focused on, it was really important for the extrinsic to focus on level 2 and level 3 performance. So that was our GCSEs and our A-levels and our BTECs and so on. And one of the things that we did to try to maximize the time was to use metacognitive strategies. So I'll go over that in the next slide. We also gave students vouchers and gift cards, and actually really focused on the merit-based system. So focused on the positive, all the time. And I say this because I do lots of training of new teachers. And whenever they come in, I have people in my department who come in and say, oh, I'm really having a bad time with this group of students. They're not behaving, they're not motivated. And they always think this is counterintuitive, but then they come back and say, oh, actually that works. I say, focus on the positives. So I'm not saying ignore bad behavior, but when you see them behaving, when you see them engaging, when you see them doing some work, say, well done, I'm so impressed with that. That is amazing. And you'll see when they're getting more and more and more positive feedback, they start feeling better about themselves and they work harder. And he came back to me, one of my students, and he was like, oh my God, it worked. I said, well, I know what I'm talking about. So positive, positive, positive. So some of the metacognitive things that we're dealing with, we have these things called knowledge organizers. I'm sure some of you heard of them already. So instead of the students having to look through reams and reams and reams of books to try to figure out what the key things are, and I think Jason spoke about this before as well, honing in on the important things. Actually, and I mean James, not James Blomfield, James, sorry, I didn't, James Horn said about this before, honing on the important things and actually putting them, summarizing all the important terms for each topic onto one sheet of paper. And that's what the students need to learn. Through those knowledge organizers, we also use what are called PLCs. So PLCs will be sort of like a list of all the things that the students need to learn, and then they will analyze them and decide if they feel very confident, they think they are ready to be tested on it. If they don't feel very confident, they know some of it, but they're not sure. And if they have no idea about it. And then depending on how, if they RAG rated themselves, red, amber, or green, red meaning they don't know anything at all, they will use different types of metacognitive strategies. I could do a whole presentation on this, so that's why I'm going through this very quickly. So using mind maps, our brains don't work in the way that, you know, you just write down a list of things. Our brains are firing at cylinders all the time. So when you think of something, you're thinking of 10,000 different things. Well, that's what I do anyway, at the same time. It's not the case that you are going to think of things in a linear way. So mind maps allows you to actually write things down the way your brain works, and putting images in as well, using something which is called dual coding, where you have images and words, actually consolidates what you're learning. Making sure that they use flashcards, and when they use flashcards, use this system called Lightner boxes. So you do your flashcards where you have a word at the front, and then at the back you have the actual meaning of the word or the meaning of the topic, and then you can learn things from that. But also you use Lightner boxes. So the first box, what you do is you have everything that you want to learn in that first box. You go over each flashcard, and if, for example, you remember everything on a particular flashcard, you move it onto the next box. That box will be done every other day. So you'll go over those tasks or those topics every other day. If, for example, you did really, really well, you'll move, and you understand that you move those box, the flashcard into this box, which you do at the end of the week, or you do every month. So you are honing in on the things you can't retain. So again, instead of working hard, you're working smart. So instead of just thinking, oh, I'm just gonna not thinking about how or the most effective way of learning, you're actually thinking about the most effective way. So metacognition is about thinking. Why do I think this way? What has worked for me in the past? What hasn't worked? Why didn't it work? How can I change it to make it work? So you're actually being really, really effective, really honing in on what you're trying to achieve, rather than just randomly learning everything. And then I'm sure some of you have learned about memory journeys or memory palaces. So it's a really powerful way of learning things. So for example, you could do it based on the real world. So the students can find topics that they find really, really difficult, and they can actually put the flashcards or some notes about that topic on the fridge door in their house. They can put another note on their headboard in their room. They can put another note in the sitting room. They can put another note, and all over the house. And then as they're walking around the house during their normal day, they're practicing those things over and over again. So when they're actually in the exam, they can actually virtually go through the living room, go through the house, and actually try to remember that, because they have something to stick on that. They have, oh, what was that? They have some information that will help them to remember that. And if they remember, they create these crazy sorts of images. So if they're trying to remember something about, oh, I don't know, I can't think of something at the moment, but they can add all sorts of crazy images like beams coming out of their ears and their eyes, or sorts of weird things. And that makes it easier for them to remember things as well. So those are some of the things that we used to try to make sure that, because the students have lost out on time already, to actually make sure that the time that they do have to prepare for their exams was as effective as possible. The other things that we spoke about, or we focused on, were SQ3R. So again, when they're reading effectively. They survey it, they query it, they ask questions about it, they're thinking about it straight away. They're not just passively reading. They then try to recall what they've been reading. Again, obviously you'll get the presentation so you can go over this. I'm doing this quickly because I think I'm going beyond my time. And then Cornell note-taking. Pardon?
Sorry, Abner, we are going to have to move on.
Yes,
shortly.
exactly. So do you want me to quickly finish, or
Yes,
I was going
please.
to go through some of the tools, but it's fine.
Not that hasn't been very interesting. It's been brilliant.
Okay, then I will leave it at that then. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry to have to cut you short, because it
No,
was really,
not at all.
It was fascinating, and like I say, the tools and those sort of uses, we've got them in a presentation that you sent us, so we could probably include them when we share as well at the end.
Okay, then, jolly good.
Wonderful, and you can always drop some of the links and ideas into the chat if you're okay with that.
Okay.
Well, I am aware that Daniel has joined us a while ago, and I thought he was on at 5+5, so I apologise for Daniel, and welcome Daniel Sobel. Are you able to share your screen? I'll share my. I've got. I do have a bio for you here, actually. Daniel, if you wanted me to, I think you wanted me to introduce you. So if I share my screen here, Daniel is our next speaker. And if I leave this on for a minute, Daniel, did you have a presentation that you wanted to do as well?
No, I'm just going to speak to camera.
Would you like me to leave this on for you, or would you like to be seen?
I'll just be seen if you don't mind.
Okay, no worries. So you can introduce yourselves, and I'll leave it to you. Thank you.
Ironically, the thing I'm most proud of is that I failed at school, and I had unidentified special needs, and I didn't graduate school in England. A levels is the end of school, age 17, 18, and I didn't get any of those, and I didn't get a degree, but I did manage to get a whole number of postgraduate master's degrees and things, and doctorate and so on and so forth. And I've been fortunate to write books in education which have been bestsellers, and my team and I have worked with thousands of schools, not just in England but all over the world. I'm currently chairing an international program which involves about 100 countries and representatives who are inclusion experts in all of those countries, and we're trying to share best practice and so on. So that's very exciting. Normally when I speak, I do it face to face, and I tend not to use PowerPoint and so on. And that PowerPoint is useful sometimes, like with Bina's wonderful presentation. But I wanted to try as best as possible, even though we're divided by thousands of miles, and we've never met each other, and we probably will never meet. But I wanted to try and reach out to you as humans. I mean, what we all have in common, behind the variety of sounding names, the languages that we all speak, is that we're all human beings. And that's why I think that we can talk about psychological phenomena such as motivation, because it affects us all, regardless of whether you're in Asia, Africa, South America, Europe, or wherever. I'm just going to share with you some ideas that I think are foundational to inclusion, and I would welcome any questions or thoughts along the way. I wondered if you, where shall I start? I'll start with a point of failure, which I actually think is a great point. One of the things which my team and I do is we run a number of master's programs in educational inclusion of different sorts. And one of the lectures I give is the importance and power of failure, because I think that we learn most from failure, and I think at least there's a possibility. So I was in a school, I was visiting a school where we were looking at their special educational needs, and they wanted me to help them with that. And the school principal said to me, would you mind just to speak to a boy who is about to be thrown out of the school for very bad behavior? We really don't know what to do with him. And so I was speaking with him, and he was looking at me and I was looking at him, and he was looking at me as a young teenager, and thinking, who's this weird guy, this fat, weird, horrible person? And I was looking at him thinking, I'm just trying to break through to you, you know, I'm just trying to like reach out. And anyway, so the conversation didn't go very well, but there was one last moment when I asked him, was there anything about school that you ever actually enjoyed? You know, like, which lesson did you ever enjoy? And he said, there was that, he likes science. And the school principal's looking at me, sort of shaking his head silently, saying, no, this boy's never done science. And so I asked a bit more, what do you mean by science? And he said, well, there was this lesson where we did about photosynthesis. Okay, that's interesting. And so when I inquired a little bit further, this is what he told me. It was a lesson where when they got their hand, they were all given a plant, a small plant, and they had to get their fingers knee deep in the plant and plant it, and in the mud and the soil, I should say, and to do that. And he liked that. And later on, the school principal explained to me that this boy has grown up in a very poor home. And in his home, there is no, it's just concrete. There's no grass, there's no shrubs or trees. There's nothing like that. There's no flowers. And what this boy really wanted was to connect to plants and trees and grass and things like that. So I said to him, look, if you promise to throw no more chairs at other teachers and children, and you know, don't kill anyone, promise now, no killing. If you that's a joke. So if you promise to engage in the school, and we'll get the relevant support for you, would you like at the end of each week, as a motivation, we can give you a reward for staying in the school, and we'll give you a little bit of the field, the school field, where they can plant some plants and flowers and herbs and fruit, vegetables. And this boy ended up staying in the school, and he ended up going to, at the age of 16, a special college for, it's called horticultural college, a special college for growing plants, and he ended up studying that. There are many stories where finding what a child really loves can give them a sense of a breath, that they themselves can find their way into education. But more importantly than that, it's about enabling or supporting the adults around them to enable the child to feel heard, to feel like someone's noticed me, someone gets me. And so much about education is us trying to squash children into the way that it has to be done. Whereas with lots of different children who are more on the edge, I'm talking about the bottom 20%, giving them something which is where they can really blossom and really grow, can enable them to sort of find their way into education on their terms. And arguably, that's a lot easier than kicking children out. In the end, when you kick children out, they end up going down very dark paths. And certainly I can say that both in England and in America and in Australia, because I happen to know something about those systems, those are the ones that end up becoming part of the prison population. So and finding a personal motivation, and it's going to be different for every child. And I have to say, of all the stories that I've come across, I've never come across anything that was so expensive. There was nothing, it's always personal, individual, because it reflects what the real child, what the real individual needs. So that's my starting point, is it's supporting the child to find their own pathway into education. The second is I went to visit, I was working with about 100 schools across Wales. And I went to visit one school, which was a big school. It's about 1,800 students. And it's the highest performing school in the UK that's a mixed ability school. So it's not, you know, they didn't have an exam at the beginning, an entrance exam, and they only take students which are very high performing anyway. It's not that. They take any student, and they have hundreds of students with special educational needs, from poorer backgrounds, a whole range, a whole full mix of students that represent society in Cardiff, the capital city of Wales. So I wanted to see what was so brilliant about this particular school. And this is what I found, and it's a slightly controversial point. When they interview for teachers, which is quite rare because all teachers just want to stay there for their life working there. But when they interview for teachers, the main thing that they're looking for is a high level of emotional intelligence. And they're interested in, normally what happens when you go for an interview, as I'm sure everyone here has done this, and I did when I was a teacher, you need to demonstrate how good and how skilled you are as a teacher. So what they say is, no, we don't care necessarily how good you are as a teacher, because we will teach you how to teach in our school. Okay, we will teach you that. That is a teachable skill. How to be a good teacher is a skill that you can learn. How to have high levels of emotional intelligence is not something that we can teach you. Now, that is an interesting, both practical, psychological, and academic debate as to whether you really can or you can't. But what they want is an environment which is full of teachers who really have a deep empathy for children. And so what they found was that the environment that they create is all about relationships, all about positive, healthy, happy relationships. Now, something which will be a bit of a surprise to some of you here, and certainly I went along with a school principal who came with me, and she was a school principal of a similar sized school. And she was a bit shocked as well. So they have a well-being program for teachers, and they've had this for the last 5-10 years before well-being became like a buzzword in education. What the program is that they have lots of facilities for teachers to do things like yoga, to get counseling, to get massage, to get their cars valeted, to get, they can bring in their ironing once a week to get that done. They can, they get so many perks, so many things that I can't remember them all, but a very long list of things which they get taken care of. And this is a state school, this is not a private school. And why do they do this? They do this because they want their teachers to be as happy as possible. And it's not that these things necessarily make you happy, of course, but what they do is they can take the edge of stress off. And the senior leadership team have 2 questions which they ask at the beginning of every single senior leadership meeting, which is on a weekly basis. Number 1 is, how can we take away the stress of our teachers to enable them to maximize the engagement of teacher-student relationship and maximize learning as a result? That's number 1. And number 2 is, how are our teachers actually doing? How are they? And they're asking about individuals. This is a really powerful idea that may to you and I sound very expensive or a bit airy-fairy, but actually I believe that this is really the future of what real education looks like. Education that's done in a very stressful exam-led environment does not bring about creativity, does not bring about engaged relationships, and does not bring about happy children. Whereas this environment which I'm describing is really, I think, of the thousands of schools that my team and I have seen, this is the most powerful experience of it. Now, rightly so, the school principal who I went with, she said, "But Daniel, how could we ever afford this?" And I said to her, "Well, I don't know, how much does this thing cost?" So they mentioned how much it cost, this program that they do with taking care of teachers, all these extra things they do for them. And she said, so we figured it out that, you know, they have very little amount of money that they spend on advertising for new jobs because everybody wants to stay there. They have very little sick days. You know, when I say sick days, I'm sure that everyone in the world has these where, you know, staff feel stressed or they've been too challenged with work, so they take time off. But they don't really have any of these days. But of course, when they have these absences of teachers, it costs the school a lot of money, you see. Anyway, I think that there's a combination of that and not hiring and also doing their own internal CPD, which saves them all the money. And it's that money that they're spending on the teachers. So the first point which I talked about was about enabling students to find their own power and their own thing that they love. The second is about taking care of your teachers, and it's your teachers who have the relationships with our students and really creating the perfect environment for that to take place. I also mentioned something about failure and embracing failure and being okay with it. I'm just going to ask you a question and then mention two other points and then we'll end. So my question to you is this. So I'll ask you to consider the following two cases. Think about the following two cases. In the same week, I saw two different schools that were teaching the same lesson, but took radically different approaches. School one, where they were teaching a particular book in English lessons, in literature lessons. The book was about, so what they did was for the children who were slightly behind in their reading, or had reading issues or reading problems, as it were, they had a teaching assistant, an additional member of staff, to withdraw those students and do a computer-based program as an intervention that boosted their reading, that boosted the reading. It was a special focused reading program. This is school one's approach. And after about 35 minutes, came back to the English lesson, and they did that a couple of times a week during the English lesson. Are you with me? The identified group of students who had needs, about 4, 5, 6, or 7 students, however many it was, they invested in an intervention that they withdrew the students to do and brought them back. That's school number one. School number two did the following. They had a teaching assistant that sat with the identified group of students with reading issues, about 5 or 6 or 7 students. And they said, right, this is where we're up to in the story. This is what we're going to be covering today. These are some of the keywords that we're going to be using. And this is a question which the teacher's going to ask. And these are some of the answers that you could give. And we call that pre-learning. Okay, preparing them for 5 minutes at the beginning of the lesson, in the lesson itself, to get ready for the lesson. And then right at the end, they did exactly the same group, but they covered what did we learn in this lesson? What did we do? What are some of the keywords which we learned? Where are we up to in the story, etc. So school one is about withdrawing students. School two is about keeping the students in the classroom, but doing what's called pre-learning and overlearning. So my question to you is, which group, school one or school two, which do you think had a better growth in their English exams at the end of the year? I don't mind if you start your microphone and tell me your view.
Does anyone want to put their hand up to ask, or you can put it in the chat, however you want to respond to Daniel?
School 2.
Why would you say that, Joanne?
It's inclusive, they're learning from each other. You are giving them scaffolding so that they can build up their learning. It's not about taking them away and giving them the reading. They can do that with everybody else.
Okay.
Looking at the chat, Joanne, everybody agrees. If you look in the chat, Daniel, everyone is saying school 2, school 2, school 2.
Does anybody else want to sort of add any other sort of reasoning, or alternatively want to sort of talk about the benefits of school 1? I don't mind, just as we've opened up the chat. Thank you, Joanne, for your interesting ideas, your values there. So let me mention a sort of a key fundamental point, which really goes to the very root of both learning and inclusion, of which I personally don't see a big difference between the two. I was asked by a local government to get involved in programs around gang crime and preventing gang crime, and I don't know anything about this. So I said to them, all I can tell you is this: our job as educators is to try and enable a child to feel like they belong more in the classroom than they feel like they belong in a gang. And at the very root, or the very heart of inclusion, is this concept of belonging, of this sense of I belong here in the classroom. And however much the intervention number 1, the school approach number 1, may well be a powerful, specific program for, that's driving reading attainment, it will in no way articulate to the child that you belong in the classroom. And actually, one of the best motivators for those children was a sense that they could they could put up their hand and offer an answer, that they feel like they belong in that classroom, that they fit. And I think that is the real goal here. You could do lots of fantastic, interesting interventions, but without this idea, and actually the world of special needs and social, emotional, mental health is full of interventions, which I'm not a big fan. But there is nothing more powerful than a child feeling like they can participate. And I'll just give you an interesting thought. We in education tend to track and measure things like a child's reading age. They've gone from a reading age of 7 to a reading age of 8. And that's a very common concept in special educational needs the world over. And that's certainly what very often we're doing in literacy lessons. But I would argue to you that a child, how they participate in a classroom, or whether they've put up their hand to read in front of peers for the first time, or whether they've read a book at home for the first time, is far more powerful an indicator of how they are really learning than whether they've gone from a reading age X to a reading age of Y. And that idea of participation, that idea of engagement, comes from the idea of belonging. And I think belonging is constructed by a number of things, not just keeping children in the classroom, but enabling them or facilitating them to feel like that they can participate and engage, that they can, that they have access to the classroom. I'm going to talk about 2 more things briefly, and hopefully just tie it all together. My latest book was about inclusive classrooms, and I'm pleased to say that it's trending #1 on Amazon in education, and it's a popular book. Well, I have to admit to being a bit of a fraud, because my expertise was more around the other books that I wrote, which is about relationships between teachers and students and so on. And I was never the best person to do things like differentiation. But I wrote the book with somebody who really is a world-class expert in differentiation, in differentiated instruction, how you adapt the classroom to meet the needs of all children. But there was one thing that I put in there, which I did know something about, which I felt was very important, is that the way that a child enters the classroom will determine a lot about how they do in that classroom. And I'm sure you've all seen on YouTube or in social media, some teachers like doing different types of high fives to, or greetings of different sorts to children when they walk in. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody does that, but be aware of a core problem, which doesn't necessarily emerge at the beginning of the class, which could emerge 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes later when they've already sort of settled, but it sort of starts in the moment they walk in, is that some children simply aren't aware fully or confident fully as to what they need to be doing in that class. Some children feel anxious when they walk in. Some children feel upset about something. Some children feel hungry when they walk in. So walking in, how they settle into the class is probably quite important. So having some kind of positive greeting when they walk in is actually quite a good idea and can go a long way. And here comes my final point, which hopefully I'll then reflect on all of them and just tie them together. Not that they need to be tied together, but it's cute. So the final point, and I thank you all for just sitting and listening to me. I find it, because I have ADHD, I find it very difficult to just to sit and listen to people. So I really thank you, and you've been listening all over the world. And this is a wonderful experience, James and Tony. I'm honoured to be invited to this, and I thank you. And I'm sorry I just have such a short amount of time. Yeah, so the idea of the final idea is as follows, and this is to do with teachers, but also to do with parents and also our own children. I mean, I'm a father of 3. I have this as well at home, which is noticing good things. Noticing good things. Oh, that was a great question. Thank you so much. Oh, I love the way you organize your desk there, etc. That it's a positive flow of noticing. And eventually children will want to show you things and want to be noticed, that they know that your attention is given to them through positivity, through engagement, through learning. I love the way that you wrote that there. That's fantastic. So you're being very specific, very, very little comments, but you're noticing, there's a subtext to this, a sort of a bigger message, which is this. The approval that you need from me, the adult in the room, you can get that by positively engaging, and I'll notice you. And it's a really powerful way of, I mean, it's a form of manipulation. I don't think the word manipulation is a bad thing when it's done in good intent. Like, for example, if I spoke so quickly that you couldn't hear me, and so quietly that you couldn't hear me, then I'm not articulating clearly to you. And so manipulation is a way of adjusting my communication style to engage you. So if that's what manipulation means, I mean, it could possibly get lost in translation. But I'm suggesting this. What children need is a sense of kindness from our teachers that comes in the form, a very specific form of noticing. And as a ramification of that, I have to tell you that teachers need that too. Teachers and parents. One of the best interventions that you can do for a child who's struggling in school is for a member of staff, like a teaching assistant or a teacher, to call home with some good news on a regular basis every other day about how well the child is doing. It forces the narrative to change from being a negative behavior to starting to see positive things. And the child realizes they can get a lot more attention by doing positive things. This creates, so just to work it all backwards now, this positive noticing is something that you can do as children enter the classroom. And the idea is that we're trying to create that special environment where a child feels like they can belong. And their belonging is more of a psychological phenomena rather than an intervention that you may do, or a particular lesson style, or a table that you may use, or a fancy intervention. And that psychological phenomena is really fueled by our emotional intelligence. To see that young children are just young humans, and we as humans thrive off nurture. And then finally, as a way of rethinking the entire curriculum, but not literally, you don't have to literally change everything, but just finding something that children can feel like they can really thrive at. Just like the boy was thriving at growing plants and things like that. So those are the simple ideas which really reflect something which is beyond the specific skill of pedagogy, of the engagement of children with a specific learning task and how to get them to memorize something, but rather it's creating the framework to maximize whatever it is that you're therefore going to do. I feel like I've just literally opened the door to some of these ideas. I'm sorry that I've had to rush them through, but I think I should pause there because time is not on our side and people have to go. And James and Tony, I hope that's been okay.
Daniel, it was amazing. Thank you very much. Seriously, don't apologize. Like I say, you've done a wonderful job. All the positive reinforcements and the messages you've got across are fantastic. And again, we always would welcome speakers back at any time. And we do apologize that we did run over a bit today, so we are losing a few people because of the timing, because they're coming from all over the world. It's the middle of the night for some people, so I apologize that people have been leaving. But does anybody have any questions for Daniel at the moment, or for any of the speakers come to that? I'd like to try and give anybody the opportunity, if you would like to put something in the chat or unmute and ask any of the speakers a question, please do so now. Is that okay? Anybody want to speak? Yeah, I think everyone's just saying thank you really in the chat. I can't see any specific burning questions, but as I said, all this can be continued on the platform within the community. This is what we're trying to do, Daniel, is have this safe environment, this community, this family feel that we can all share and support each other in, and that's one of our main goals of the Global School Alliance. So we can carry this on the forums, on our platform, and hopefully in future conferences too. So we'd love to, if you could join us again, maybe, Daniel.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Fantastic.
I'm not on anything else, so just find me there. And
always like your connection in the chat if you'd like. That'd be if you want to share it with people, that'd be awesome.
I think just search for my name if you wouldn't mind too much, and you can see my ugly face there.
Wonderful. That's brilliant. Like you say, the recording for this is going to be shared as well for everyone who's participated. So thank you everybody for coming. And I'm really conscious that it's late for some people, and thank you all the speakers tonight. It has been amazing, and you've all contributed in so many ways, but I think there is a common theme here that has been pulled out by everybody, and thank you so much. So thank you everybody. Does anyone have a burning desire? Jason, Abner, and Annie, have you anything you'd like to add?
No, just say thank you for having me. Yeah, fantastic.
I just want to say thank you for inviting me. It was lots of fun, and I would love to do another one on metacognition because I love metacognition. And all those technological tools that I didn't get over.
Yes, some practical tools that people can use. That would be fantastic. Yeah. Yes, you might regret that. We'll get you back. Thank you for offering. So I'm just literally. Oh, actually, David, have you got your hand up? Did you want to say something? Unmute yourself. Or was it David? Did you want to unmute? You have your hand up.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you. I wanted to say thank you for this comprehensive seminar today. And I wish everyone a happy day. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. And like I say, it's amazing. We are talking to people in Africa and in Asia and all over the world, which is fantastic. Wonderful. So I'm probably going to play us out with a new video that we've just had one of our lovely marketing assistants has made, just to summarize again what the Global School Alliance is about. So I'll play the final video and bid everyone good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and join us on the next one. Okay, thank you very much. I'll play this now. you. And good night, farewell. I think we're going to end the meeting here, but thank you very much. And please join us again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
good night, everyone. Thank you.